Welcome to our podcast, Our Story to Tell. We're diving into the behind the scenes of moving our family abroad and how that move changed everything for us.
We're Risa and Tanner, an American family living our life abroad with our two little adventures. From the US to Germany, Japan, and now Italy, this podcast is more than just travel. It's a story about transformation too.
Everyone has a story, and this is our story, and maybe it'll sound a little bit like yours as well. So with that, let's get started.
Welcome to episode 3. It's exciting that we're 3 episodes in now, and we've been sharing some pretty personal details, and in today's episode, that kind of continues. So we're going to continue our love story and get to the grand finale of marriage. I guess that just is the beginning, right? Then we're going to continue to share what life looked like for us attending university and getting ready for a really big traveling trip. In this episode, we're going to be covering the span of about 3 years, which is nice because the last episode we covered 18 to 20.
Yeah, that one definitely had a lot filled into it. We really hope you guys enjoyed that. It was fun for us to reminisce and really share some behind the scenes things that we haven't shared before. So episode 2 covers all the way from us basically getting raised in the communities that we did up until us both graduating, myself leaving on a church mission with a Mormon church, and then here we are, me returning.
I also did want to say that episode provided a lot of context of what it was like growing up in a very Orthodox setting within the Mormon theology. We know our story is not unique. However, for many of you guys listening in, if you're watching from Europe, if you really have never had exposure to this religion, I do think you would find that episode very, very interesting. And, if you have been touched by the religion, you'd also be viewing it from a different sort of a lens. I think it would touch you in a different way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so like Tanner said, we had left off with him going on his mission. And we're going to jump back into that.
Yeah, so as a missionary, I left at 18 years old and served 2 years in El Salvador and Belize, split fairly evenly between those times. My job 24/7 was to be a missionary, to teach, share the gospel, try to convert individuals using the Book of Mormon, using prayer, using lesson materials. And it was honestly an incredible experience.
And during that time, I was the senior in high school for the first year of his mission. And then I graduated and I went to Utah State University in Logan, Utah, a place that we both frequented a lot in our childhood. It's just over the hill into Cache Valley, a beautiful place. Honestly, we love Logan. I still have a lot of fond memories and think it's just a beautiful little city. I started my prerequisite classes to become a registered dietitian, and I jumped fully into my career and was working jobs on the side. So now, why don't you finish off a little bit of your mission?
When I finished up my mission, my mindset was changing from complete service dedication for others to now I actually have to prepare myself for the next step, which within the church community is always missions and then what? Marriage, right?
Tanner Christensen on his mission for the first 18 months was kind of different than Tanner Christensen on the last 6 months. And I even felt that through our letter and email exchanges. So maybe share a little bit about that.
The first 15 months of my mission, I was in El Salvador, and it definitely came with this. I'm still learning Spanish at this point to be more comfortable with it, right? And then I'm also with companions who are from Central South America. And so I'm blending multiple cultures at a time. I'm living with another individual, trying to get along with them, and then also trying to teach people who are from a different culture. So there's a lot of mixtures. And I think my mind was just so focused on being the best missionary that I could be and trying to convert people, share the gospel. I think I was more of a strict missionary. I would say any companions, past companions, if any of you are watching this, if you knew me in El Salvador compared to Belize, there was a distinct change. Even so much that one really good friend who I'm still communicating with today, we were living in the same house together. There were 3 companionships, I think, in this home. And there was a time when my mission journal was open and they recognized that my handwriting in El Salvador was completely different than my handwriting in Belize. Not only that, I think I wrote only in Spanish in El Salvador, and then when I got to Belize, it was all in English. And so I do think that there was this impact of me being able to express myself more clearly in English in my journals, also impacted maybe some other things. There was definitely this more relaxed Tanner as a missionary in Belize. I think I was a better missionary because of it, as far as accepting differences, as trying to be a better listener. But I was also in leadership positions at that point too. So I think maybe that was where there was a little bit of a switch that came on. Interesting to hear that you recognize it as much, and we've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. If I had continued to be the same missionary that I was in El Salvador and then came home, I think it would be more of a culture shock for myself and for you if my mindset was not as, I guess, relaxed and maybe ready for a relationship.
I feel like leaving, it was as such of like, I knew you were going to be a very rule abiding missionary. I knew you were going to thrive in your mission field. I feel like I was just more surprised when you were less weird about getting into a romantic relationship. It took a lot for you to kiss me in high school.
Yeah.
And so for you to come home and kiss me within the first 24 hours, that was kind of a surprise to me. I mean, a surprise that I welcomed with open arms, but I didn't expect it. I hoped for it.
Maybe it was more of like the Belizean, relaxed, go with the flow. To my Belizean friends, like, bless, there's something about the community there and the country that it did change me. And I think it changed the missionaries that were there as well. So as we would be together as a missionaries, I think we all loosened up. And, Belize was the proverbial better place. Like it was where the missionaries who spoke Spanish before, like coming from Latin countries, if they like worked hard enough to learn English well enough, they could get sent there. And it was like they were all hoping to go there. And also a lot of the missionaries who were, American or English speaking in general, like they also wanted to go there to experience it as well. And it's also worth mentioning there's this precedence. You serve a mission, you come home, you get married, you start a family, right? There's even conference talks, and we would even have general authorities, like we'd listen to messages that they would say, like, don't delay. Like, if you know that that's the person, like, don't delay. That's beautiful in so many ways. And also difficult because I think there's probably been a lot of missionaries who have come home. They find someone who they're attracted to and they get married too quickly and they don't know the person. And for whatever reason, like it ends up in a separation, divorce or whatever. Like, I think there's a lot to say with being able to have the time to like focus on what that person wants as a new person. And it's ironic that I'm even saying this because I definitely didn't follow that. As you said, I came home and I kissed you within 24 hours of coming home.
Yeah, wasn't there like a thing for that?
Well, it was a 24-hour club, essentially.
Oh, the 24-hour club. There's so many things that are things. If you came home early from your mission, that was a thing, kind of a shameful thing. When you leave on your mission, there's like a whole big party. Like that's unique, outside looking in. It's like, oh, that's different, you know?
So there's really no doubt in my mind that like this transition from missionary to preparing for marriage is like a difficult situation. There's a lot of expectation to be there.
I think those early years in your 20s, I'm still 29, okay? For some listeners, that might be surprising. I feel like when we first announced our age, I think I was like 25 or 26 on YouTube, and people were like, what? They were like, you've just done a lot in your life to still only be 25.
Yeah.
And I can see that now from the lens more of like a European listener, because a lot of 20-year-olds here are thick in self-exploration.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're dating and having a lot of lived experiences. When we talk to our German friends, they're like, no, people don't settle down at 20. They're not committing to their lifelong partner. It's encouraged to explore. It's encouraged to make mistakes, grow, learn, kind of test the waters. And really get to know yourself.
Yeah, and I'll like expand a little bit on that. I think it's not because they think that it's bad. It's just necessarily there's so much good in developing away from your family, or even if you're still living with your family, like you're getting to know like what you want to do. A lot of times people try to get settled into their career so that they have a little bit more stability. What's interesting with that is a lot of church topics. I'm talking like President Hinckley, who was the prophet of the church from the late 90s to the early 2007, I think. Like there was emphasis from him and several of the leaders that it was like, don't wait essentially, but then don't wait until you're in the middle of your career to get married. Don't wait until you're established. And I know for some people that's worked out amazingly, and like it worked out for us. There is some, maturity also that comes with recognizing that maybe their focus is more on their career and stuff rather than focusing on marriage, because they're like, well, I have no idea what I'm going to do right now. If I can be a provider to a family, like that's kind of a scary thought. If I don't have like any plans set in stone, I don't have any true way to know that I'm going to be able to provide for my family and provide them a good life, like maybe I should wait the next 5 years or 3 years and really develop on something. And then once I've done that, look into it.
I understand, even in Germany versus Italy, I think there's probably differences in how long they wait. Like I would assume Italians, it's maybe a little earlier to get married. I'm not sure. I would love, this is where we want to open up, conversation to you guys. Let us know in the comments, what was it like for you, where you grew up in? When did you personally get married? Was that the normal? Was it not? If you're not married, like I'd love to hear just of different life experiences, because of course there's exceptions even in our like smaller bubble, but for the majority we would say like there was societal pressures, there was kind of doctrinal, cultural pressures within the Mormon theology to get married at a young age.
Absolutely. To go on with that, it's interesting. A few weeks ago, we looked with our German friends. We took a look at like the average ages of marriage in the US compared to Utah. And then I think we also compared to Europe. And I don't remember all the specific numbers right now, but I think that in like the late 90s or even like 80s, leading up into like the early thousands, it was 23, I think was like the average age of a married man in Utah, and like 26 for like the states or something. So anyway, there's a lot of changes that happen, but still statistically, like Utah definitely is an area where it's very common to see teenagers, literally teenagers, getting married. And it's just interesting to see how different that has been when we communicate with others.
I recognize a difference of age of the parents of the Italian and German parents and, you know, Japanese parents dropping their kids off to first grade. And I'm like a 29-year-old and the rest are all in their 30s, if not 40s. It's just a clear difference. And it has been, especially in Germany.
Yeah, I think it was a very drastic change for us to go from like, we see friends and we have family who are our age and they have kids our age and older. And it's like, to know that our daughter's best friends, their parents are like 40. And I just turned 30 this year. So it's like, it's a little bit strange. It's just wild sometimes to think about how lives are just so different. And I think that's what we love, getting to know people and traveling.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be outside of the US. We'll say this time and time again, but like we have seen such wide varieties of lifestyles and choices. But it's important to go into this detail as we talk about post-mission and marriage prep for us, because for us, it was focused so much on getting married when you know that you found the person, and wouldn't change it.
Ditto. And I guess one more world perspective, like we understand that people in Utah, you know, are statistically getting married at younger ages. But when we look at a world perspective, we understand like Europe is a more, say, developed continent, and that there are many countries and continents where kids are getting married. Unfortunately, there are a lot of underage and young women that traditionally, culturally, like this is normal. Yeah. And, you know, obviously there's so many factors that we could talk about: education, socioeconomic status, etc. Religion. Yes, that's a conversation for another time. But I just think there's so many different ways you can look at this conversation and so many perspectives to have. Obviously, we're trying to cover a lot of them, but ultimately it is just our lived experience. And yeah, we're not experts on anything, just sharing our story. So you get home from your mission, you kiss me, first time we see each other.
Yeah.
I'm like so happy we're gonna like jump into this relationship, because again, as a reminder, like I was dating when he was gone, and each person that I was dating honestly gave me more confirmation that I was interested in Tanner and hoped he was as well. So then when he kissed me, I got some confirmation. I guess now's the time to share how long we dated for until we were engaged.
Yeah. Talk about having a quick engagement time. Yeah, I got home June 11th, and I think we were engaged by August 20th. So of that same year. Yes, that same year.
Was it the 13th? No.
It was
August 23rd.
It was roughly 3 months from the time that I got home by the time that you had a ring on your finger. And I say that with the preface again, if you're just tuning in, like we knew each other from the time we were 14. So we had 4 years before, you know, I left on my mission, riding the whole time. So there was still the emotional connection there. And then obviously
love went out.
We were definitely ready to get to know each other. And I think it's also very important to mention here
I love the way you said that. Yeah. We were definitely ready to get to know each other. Like,
but like it. There's definitely something that we had mentioned last time, like within the Mormon community, like people don't sleep before they get married. They don't have sex before they get married. And it's because of the law of chastity and the belief that sexual activity and intimacy should be shared for marriage and only between a man and a woman, right? Like that culturally is common among so many other religious groups, right? But especially within ours, there's a deep level of shame and purity culture that comes with it if that doesn't happen, like if you don't follow through with that. And so for us, imagine us, we definitely have sexual feelings for each other. We're definitely hanging out a lot all the time. No shortage of kissing and cuddling and such. But like there's obviously this pressure because we know that if we want to be intimate, like we have to be married.
There's a timeline.
Like there is well, of course there's a timeline, because either you're going to quote slip and
not be able to get married in the temple,
which is another aspect we'll touch on, or you get married so that you can be intimate and that you can, like I said, get to know that person from that sense. And it's such an interesting side of things because looking back at it now, I wanted to get married like in October. We got married in December. Risa mentioned that. But there was like, we had been engaged for like 6 weeks and we were talking about planning the wedding and there was a lot. We'll get into that. But like, we were going to get married like a week before Christmas. We just like felt so much love and probably hormones that it was like, let's just get married in October, which would have been like 6 weeks away or something. It was kind of a crazy
I had
thought.
my reality cap on a little bit for the fact of like housing that being a thing. So I was like, no, let's just keep it to December because semester's
we weren't living,
out.
and we also weren't living with each other.
So. Yes. And so I don't want to pay for 2 places when we can just pay for one. I was just raised to be too frugal for that to happen. I think I also understood we can handle 1 to 2 more months.
Yeah.
I think you just kind of get a sense of the urgency. This probably helps paint a picture as to why people are getting married young.
Yeah.
For one, families are like a central focus of the religion in general.
The central focus.
Yes. So that makes sense of like why delay having a family. Family's everything. And then also like that you can't have sex until you're married.
I get that there's definitely like maybe a financial side of things, or it's like a school side of things, or it's like there's other commitments, but ultimately there's no doubt that that plays an impact. Like it definitely did for us at the time, where it was like, I know that I'm wanting to marry this person. I know that I'm going to marry this person. There's a commandment within the church that you can't have a valid temple recommend if you are having sex outside of marriage. And so that paints that picture again too, that it's like the highest place, the best place for someone to get married within the Mormon church is within the temple. And within the temple, the marriage includes something called a sealing. And the sealing is something that keeps the family together, is what is taught for time and all eternity.
So this is interesting. We didn't touch on this in the previous episode, but there's like temple recommend. So you're kind of having a little bit of like a spiritual, obviously surveillance, but like you're having temple recommend interviews. You're having different things that are keeping you in check to make sure that you are still like quote unquote worthy. Our views have changed in this regard, but that's just how it is. And that's still how it is right now. They have to have interviews and answer them honestly to be able to go. And one of the questions is the law of chastity.
Yeah.
To clear the timeline, 2 months we were dating, got engaged in August, and then we waited 4 months till December. And at that time, Tanner was 20 and I was 19.
I had just turned 20 when I got back. So, but yeah, I was 20 and a half and you were
in my teens
and a half almost. Yeah.
Oh, you should briefly share how you proposed.
Yeah. Like my proposal wasn't anything fancy, but we went to a little park and had a picnic and had smoothies. And what else did we have? I know we had smoothies.
You had like a couple different gifts, I want to say, or at least a
No,
card.
I had a card and there was another little gift in there. And then I had the ring, and unbeknownst to her, one of her best friends was hiding in the back of our car. And it had like, it was a Hyundai Elantra, and it had like the little section that you could push out from the trunk and get into the car. So she was in the trunk while we drove there. Thankfully, I didn't get in a wreck. And then she pushed it out and was able to take some video and pictures through the window.
No, I really liked our proposal, and I loved that it was intimate at the park. It was just me and him. And to have it documented is really special, to be able to have those pictures, because I had no idea she was back there. And he got on his hands and knees, which...
Not on my hands and knees.
No. That is the gem. He got on his knee and proposed, and it was a special day. Was there anything like during our engagement that comes to your mind of memory that you wanted to share?
I mean, we spent almost every waking moment of every day that was possible. If I wasn't at work, we were together. If you weren't, I don't even remember what you were doing for work that summer. Slushy Shack?
No, that was when you were gone in high school.
You were working in Logan?
I didn't really talk about a lot of our jobs. I worked all throughout high school, and 2 jobs. I worked at a flour milling company.
Yeah, that's
part of the time. And then I also worked for the outdoor recreation program at Utah State. We had a really fun engagement. It was a busy stage of like self-development. But you lived right down the street?
Yeah. I was able to find a place literally 1.5 blocks away. So that was nice, obviously, for getting together, studying, being able to make out breaks in between and stuff. So it was like,
cheers.
We ended up finding an apartment to live in, like just 3 blocks away from that too. So it was it's all a very small area.
So then let's talk about our wedding. And then after we'll kind of talk about what it was like as newlyweds.
Yeah. So we got married December 19th, 2015, the Big 10 coming up. Our wedding, like preparation from my perspective, not to get too nitty gritty, like I was pretty hands off. I would answer a few questions on opinions that were asked of me and stuff, but like the cultural typical thing was like you were going to be planning like colors, the flower colors, everything and that and that's definitely what you did. And I think my side was to, work with my parents to find out a luncheon location. And like that's what we did,
I have to laugh at that. Like your one task when like if any of you guys have planned a wedding, there are hundreds. Honestly, I felt like I kind of knew what I wanted and it wasn't a problem at all. Like we were okay with that.
Did you choose the colors that you had in your little wedding time capsule that you created?
Great question. So in the last episode, we had talked about like young women events and how part of that was kind of in preparation for marriage. And I created like a capsule that had like my colors and preferences for my wedding. And I do not think I went with the same. I'm even surprised looking back of the colors of our wedding because we had like a maroon, kind of like a dark purplish red, and then some blush pink and cream. And I know exactly where all of that stemmed from. It stemmed from this beautiful picture I saw on Pinterest of like flowers like hanging from like this beautiful ceiling over this like dining room table. And I was like, I love that. And I still love the picture. The execution of it wasn't the same. I feel like if I had to redo, I'd probably change things, but the colors were still fine. For winter, I feel like a maroon is very fitting for a winter time. Also the timing, like I would have rather gotten married in October so it wasn't around Christmas.
Holidays, Christmas, New Year.
That's a busy time to try and fit in like anniversary celebrations. And then we'll talk about this later, but like Willa came in December. So our Decembers are very busy at this stage of life we're at. Sometimes we try to not have them be overlooked, but sometimes it just naturally happens because of the holiday season. But yeah, I think I'd even change like the colors and ideally it would be like spring or summer or sometime like warm outside. That kind of fitting. But we did the best with what we had. I had a certain budget and it was not extravagant in any of the sort. My parents gave me money and said you could elope with this or you could have a reception. And unfortunately, hindsight, we wish we would have like taken the money and ran.
Just had a simple little wedding ceremony and then maybe like a follow-up celebration or something with people.
But we did the typical Mormon reception, which honestly, in my perspective, is more for the community and the family than it is for the individuals getting married.
At least that's how our experience was.
Yes.
Because I don't know if it's just because we didn't know any better or we were just so busy getting caught up with everything else that we really missed out on the opportunity to like dance and not just like have like slow dance, but like celebrate. Yeah. And like in some ways, like the party of celebrating like the start of our relationship, our marriage.
Yeah, our reception was in a church building in the gym. So think basketball courts, hoops that have been like lifted up. We had a lot of friends help provide decorations. It was free to rent. And a lot of the decorations were like handed down, just shared.
Or self-made,
Or self-made.
It's cute though. Like, I mean, I think given the sense, it was still good. It was just, it's very atypical, I think, for people because when they go into the wedding, like spending $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 like to go in for a wedding it is not uncommon. And I think half of the reason why this is a common practice is because people who get married within the Mormon community, they get married inside of the temple. If we're okay to dive into that a little bit there. Yeah, like as I mentioned before in this video, a little bit about the temple and temple recommend, and in the other video, the temple is the most holy place for, I guess, the common people to go into, right? Like a person to enter into a temple after it's been dedicated has to be worthy and they have to follow, the commandments and laws, and they have to pass an interview to get a temple recommend. Mm-hmm. For us, we wanted to get married in the temple because based on the religion, like that's the most important thing to do is get married in the temple so that your family and your future children can get sealed to you or literally like connected with you throughout all time and eternity in heaven and to reach the highest section of heaven. Believe it or not, there's more than one section in heaven in Mormon theology. And in order to reach that highest part, you have to be married in the temple. Looking back, what's difficult about that is because you are excluding anyone who doesn't have a temple recommend. It's also a very routine, factory-like situation. You can make it very personal. And I know that many people who are probably watching here, and even including ours, it was still very intimate and special. Like I still take back what we learned and heard as very special. And I also see, and I look back we were just one of 20 or 30 other couples who were just getting married that same day in December in the Logan Temple. There's no chance to exchange vows inside. You don't say I do, you say yes to commit to that person. And looking back now, I think that's in part why, we've really tried to think about how we want to commemorate our 10 years together. And we've talked several times. We still have yet to plan anything in solid.
It might be 15 or 20.
It might be 15 or it might be 11. Maybe we'll just do some random year. 13. That's a good one, right?
We want to have, per se, a second chance. I don't want to say a do-over.
No, it's not a do-over.
Because it's a part of our past. We accept it. We did the thing that we wanted to do at the time.
But now we want something more that more commonly reflects the ability to share our true love verbally and in a way that feels more like us.
Yeah, we want something different. So some family members were not at our wedding. And in fact, they were just outside waiting, which it does make me sad. But that's just the reality of it. At this point, I'd gone through the temple like Tanner did before his mission. I had to go get endowed, go through the temple before I got sealed in the temple. There's multiple different steps. So once you get endowed, then you're given like your garment. And this is something that you're supposed to wear basically at all times. And so I had to have like a certain wedding dress to cover up those garments. At the time, it wasn't that difficult because I knew that was what was normal and what was expected. But that's another thing that maybe if we do a redo, I'll get to choose the dress that I want for all aspects, not just that like has to fit a certain mold.
Just to go back a little bit here, the garment is, in a sense, it's the underwear that people wear as a symbol of remembering Christ and the covenants or the promises that they make inside of the temple. Because going inside the temple isn't just a place to go and pray and to worship, but it's a place where you make promises to God and you make promises to yourself, to your spouse, to live a certain way for the rest of your life. The garments are something very special, but when you look from the outside in, the temple is a very exclusive area. There's sacredness to it, but there's no way around the fact that it is exclusive for someone who doesn't live the exact same way or doesn't pay their tithing or doesn't
drinks coffee.
They might be the best person in the world, but if they don't follow the exact criteria, they can't go in there.
I always feel like disclaimers are needed because we didn't say this before, but like we stressed it a lot in episode 2. Like when we talk about Mormonism, being raised members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we always want to do this with like the utmost respect and like tenderness because almost all of our family is still active members, our communities, our friends. The majority of the people that we know in our lives, honestly, are still. And there's also many who are not, who have chosen to step away or who never were. And our circle is growing with never Mormon friends, which has been really great for us. But just as we say this, we're trying to like state the facts and how it wasn't to provide clarity and context. That's really the ultimate goal, is just to provide clarity as part of our story. And we always strive to do it respectfully. So no matter where you are in your journey, if one of the reasons you listen to our podcast is for our like faith journey, we see you. We're so glad you're here no matter where you are. Active, inactive, have left, have never been. We see you. You're not alone.
Yeah, well said. We had our special day. We got married in the temple. There was no I do's, no vows. We have our reception. We're off, and we had an amazing honeymoon going to California to a little small coastal town called Cayucos. And we had Christmas eating Panda Express.
It was a long honeymoon. We got married December 19th. Our plans was not to come home until after Christmas. But some of the things we didn't account for was what to do on Christmas Day because so little is open.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Right.
But we just didn't really plan on it. And given the time of the year, we were in Bakersfield, California on our way back to Utah. Yeah, we literally had Panda Express takeaway, and while we watched Family Feud in the hotel.
We had to like get the dinner before like
3
2 or 3.
Yeah,
because it was closed. So it was a really fun, quiet Christmas, not like anything we were used to, with tons of family around, tons of things to do, and plenty of food. We had a box of takeout, but it was just such a fun time to be able to start our lives together. We were running off of love. Looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, we were so young.
Yeah. But we love that. I think we love that aspect of just pure exploration. We're figuring out who we are and really growing up together. in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we talked about how a lot of other individuals in their 20s are growing up and are having that self-exploration. And ours was a journey of doing that together. And for the first couple of years, I would say, honestly, we're just kind of doing the status quo. I mean, and we were really busy.
Yeah, we honestly like zipped through college quite fast considering the load that we had trying to work. I think I held about 8 different jobs throughout college because I was still figuring out what I wanted and like how to even balance life. I think that was kind of what was hard, was balancing as much workload, minimum 15 credits a semester, sometimes up to 21. I remember we had a lot. But yeah, we just definitely were figuring out so much of life together.
So school was top priority, school full time. And then I was working 2 part-time jobs. And then that eventually evolved to where I became a fitness instructor and taught fitness group classes, did cycling, HIIT workouts. I really loved that. And then this summer in my sophomore year, I worked to become a personal trainer. That was a lot of my jobs.
I could share a few of mine. Yeah.
Tanner, yeah, why don't you share?
I'll dive into a few of mine. I also worked for Outdoor Rec for I think for 2 different semesters, like officiating sports games and stuff. So that was kind of fun. Had a friend that I did that with, and it was flag football that I officiated with, which I'd never played football before, but just flag football. So it was pretty easy enough. Then another job I had was working at a cheese factory where I would manually load huge blocks of cheese into like shredders and unbox stuff and compact them. That lasted a few months.
That one was the hardest.
It was the hardest because it was from 6 p.m. to midnight.
Yeah.
At least, and sometimes it was later. It was just really hard full days of school, and then just going straight to there.
Yeah.
And I know so many people do something just like that. But for me, I definitely was trying to look for other things.
Well, mental health has to play a big part in some of the decisions, and sometimes you don't have the option to not.
Yeah, and thankfully we were in a position that we did. There's no way around it. We were benefiting from Pell Grants. We were benefiting from our hard work and scholarships, and your income and my income, although mine was a little more inconsistent. But yeah, we definitely did. I was like a research assistant for a little bit, helping with Spanish translation, and I worked at
Did Cutco.
I did Cutco, selling Cutco knives.
That was around the time of our wedding, so we got like a great gift of Cutco knives as a package, which
we still use today.
Are great knives.
And then I had like a scientific chemistry lab products job where I would be basically packaging, filling, labeling different like solutions to be used in chemical labs. And what else did I have?
He has more jobs to come.
Yeah.
But so we get home from our honeymoon and we just go into these jobs that we've talked about. School. And we're living in an apartment in Logan. And you guys, the rent at the time was $475 per month.
For 2 bedrooms, 1 bath.
And it was a fairly decent sized apartment. And now looking back, cost of living in Utah has changed so much. That was
2015 to 2018 as well. Yeah.
Like already I know it's at least double. It could maybe be triple. I don't know now. And then we lived at the same place throughout our whole college duration, which ended up being 3 years together because my freshman year was before. So then we finished the spring semester, and that's when another one of Tanner's jobs happened.
Yeah, we decided to join a friend and do summer sales, like door-to-door sales. And for those who are in Utah or practically anywhere in the States, like you'll know the group of like sales bros that come through. And there's definitely girls that do it too, but like door-to-door salesmen and the Mormon community, especially for return missionaries, are prime people to do this because that's what we did. Like not necessarily all of us knocked doors during the mission, but a lot of us did cold calling, did cold contacting. Like, so in confronting people out of the blue was like not really hard for a lot of people. And so we ended up doing an entire summer of summer sales in Orange County, California. It was a really fun experience, amazing weather, fun to be close to the beach, had a really fun team, and we made some friends while we were there. That was, I guess, like kind of our first eye-opening experience living away from home together, right? Like it was. And we're only 6 months married, but we're going out there and living in SoCal, having a fun time on the weekends when I'm not working. Yeah, it was, I guess that's kind of like our first experience that we had out, and it opened us to really transition into the possibility of moving away from home for future internships in the summer and also just in the future.
And as you're saying this, I'm just remembering that we skipped over the trip to Belize. So over spring break,
Oh, yeah.
when we were married, we decided to go and take advantage of like the week off of school to go back to Belize. We thought it's not like we were financially like that prepped for it. If we want to stay or like meet the people that Tanner had been with in Belize, you have to go now because they're all on certain time. And so we were actually able to go and we stayed there for free and part of it.
Yeah, for part of it, there was a family who had a condo on the island of San Pedro, which was part of the mission there, and some of the missionaries were out there. I wasn't there for more than just like a few days at a time doing visits and stuff. To get to speak with them a little bit, get to know them a little, and get to just meet some of the beautiful people that like I met on my mission. And I think it was really fun. It was honestly kind of weird in some ways too, to be back there less than a year after I had been there, married now, and not as a missionary. I think that was the biggest change because those streets that I walked on, the streets that I biked on as a missionary, and then to go back as like a tourist was kind of a weird change, but still beautiful. And we had an amazing time in Belize getting to do things that I couldn't do on my mission.
Yeah, I never actually thought about that, but I'm sure that felt kind of strange. And not only doing that in a tourist way, but like with a spouse.
Yeah.
Of like showing, like you were kind of my tour guide, showing me all the places you've done, which provided me a lot of great insight to get to know how that shaped you and to meet some of the people that you had met. That trip, I would say, really like got my interest in travel going because we did a boat trip out to the coral reef. So we saw like sea turtles and like huge stingrays. And that was just so fun. Previously, in my freshman year, my family had went down to the Caribbean. So it wasn't my first time out of the country, but it was like my third. I'd actually went to Thailand as a freshman. So the travel bug had already started to hit me and it was like, no, let's go. We're poor college students, but I think we kind of already had this sense of experiences last forever. Money comes and goes kind of mindset.
Yeah, early on. Yeah.
For better or worse, but I think for better.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that because it was true. The summer in California definitely was like definitely fun because it was longer term, right? Flash forward a little bit to the next summer, within my program, within public health, I was required to do an internship, thankfully paid internship. And we actually took that one to Ogden. Mm-hmm. So it was close by, but we moved again, just an hour, 45 minutes south of Logan. But it was fun again to like move, have a different experience. We got to go to Seattle during one of the weeks for a conference that I was invited to for a scholarship.
During the time in Ogden, that's like I said, when I got my personal training degree. And then I worked as an assistant to a registered dietitian, which was one of the best things for me. I learned that I loved community nutrition and I was really honing in my degree. From high school, knew I wanted to be a dietitian. So it was just fun to have these things come to fruition for us. We were both on the path to graduate. We were learning how to balance a lot of things between work, school, our relationship, social life. Like we were learning a lot of that at this time. And Ogden is also the time where I saw $300 round trip tickets from Salt Lake City to Venice. And that was our first experience going to Europe.
Needless to say, we were hooked. We had an amazing time. We spent 10 days, believe it or not. Thinking about that now seems like such a short trip, but like we spent 10 days. Your sister and her friend came with us, and we're like blown away by so much. We loved spending time in Italy and Switzerland. And again, that just fueled our fire. And really, I think planted the spark about how can we do this more consistently. I think we even had a conversation one time. Our plan is that 2 weeks out of every year, we're going to try and travel somewhere. Yeah. I think that was something along the lines that we said, this is what we're going to try and do in the future. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to say about that trip to Europe?
No, I don't think so. It was just a monumental one for us, developing this love for travel, realizing that people are living different lives abroad. Because at this time in our life, we were still totally believing, or very Orthodox members. We weren't attending maybe our local ward, but we were going to church with our family members. Honestly, just like we'd kind of checked off a lot of the boxes in like the Mormon track other than having kids. But I personally was not about to get pregnant during school. Like I was in a very like fast track degree that wasn't in the cards, and I didn't want it to be. Yeah. You did your degree in 3 years, so you like shaved off a year of your program. So it was just a lot of work, school, family.
I probably miss the Jake's over the top shakes the most from Ogden. Those were amazing. This is a very important aspect of our time there. They had the best raspberry brownie shakes, don't you think?
That is one thing we miss from being abroad, is just the shakes are different. Like you think about getting a milkshake.
That's hilarious. We're talking about shakes, but I know.
I know, but that's one of them. The desserts in the US are just different. They're packed with more sugar and more like candy bar texture, especially in their ice cream that we do miss it. Of course, we love gelato. We're in the land where we have an abundance of gelato and it's amazing. But, sometimes you just miss the things that you grew up with and like a thick shake filled with textures of brownies and fresh raspberries.
If you can hold it upside down like this and it doesn't fall out, like that's the consistency
That's the goal.
of one you want. No, just a little fun insight there to kind of give you some perspective and a visual fond memory of us.
Yeah, we didn't go out to eat a lot during our college years, saving money. But when we did, it was typically like our local Indian restaurant.
Or Thai.
We already had developed a love of diverse foods. Mm-hmm. It was kind of fun. Like we were starting to develop in ways that were different than what we grew up with. And then we graduated.
Yeah, we busted through senior year. You graduated. We both walked. And then I had one final internship that I wanted to finish up, or I guess kind of needed to in some ways, because I still had 2 summer classes that I had to take to graduate. So we were fortunate enough I was able to land an internship with Boeing just south of Seattle in Auburn, Washington. It was incredible for my resume, but also for just like our experience. We were able to find a family who rented out their small little detached house. And it was perfect for us. And like, we really had an incredible time that summer, although we were working very hard.
Yeah, the entire summer I was studying for my registered dietitian exam, which is a big test. I spent a lot of the days. I don't even think I looked into work because we were only there until the end of July. So it was like 2, maybe 3 months where you had your internship. And I was just trying to study to pass this exam. And also I was doing a lot of prep behind the scene because that year, all of my senior year, we were planning this really big backpacking trip. And we had started a nonprofit organization.
NEAM, or Nutrition Education Any Malnutrition, was something you and a friend started. I should say I started as well, but like you guys were the driving forces behind it, being the dietetic students. We got everything set up in Utah before we left that summer, and leading up to the months before, we had volunteers lined up, and the plan was to leave end of July and to go and spend 2 weeks in northern India and Himachal Pradesh and do nutrition education.
Yeah, and I want to just spend a minute talking about this because it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. I had a malnutrition class in my program, and that's where I learned about the statistics of nutrition education and the impact it has on malnutrition. Hearing about hunger in general is just a heartbreaking thing, but to see it, so clearly in some of these developing countries, I immediately felt maybe I could do something to make some sort of a difference. And statistics were saying that the most sustainable way to help combat that is nutrition education. So as my personality has always been my life growing up, I'm kind of a dreamer, and I dreamed up this idea of creating a nonprofit organization. We came up with curriculum, and I did a lot of like the travel planning and the behind the scenes of like logistically what it would look like to take 18 adults to India. It was a success.
Yeah.
That first year was very successful. We had a lot of applicants, like 60 or 70 people that applied, which surprised me. And I was so incredibly grateful. It gave me confidence to feel like I could do this. And it's still like a big passion project. We ended up having a second year where we expounded to Indonesia. We'll touch a little bit about it in the next podcast. But then COVID hit, and once COVID hit, we had kids, and our whole lives have just gone in a direction I never foresaw. And it's been very difficult to kickstart that back up. I have hopes to do it again soon. We've got a lot in the works.
Yeah, honestly, that is the hope, is to get it going up again. If you are ever interested in volunteering, this is a wonderful opportunity, and we'll have more information to share in the future, hopefully soon. So keep out for that. But before we left to India, we finished out like the internship in Washington. It was like our first real experience living in an area that was so green, like incredibly green. We had an amazing view of Mount Rainier, like from the street. Like we could walk 3 minutes down the street and literally on a clear day could see Mount Rainier covered in snow, like the peak. It was incredible. We explored a lot of areas. We went to the San Juan Islands. We went to Seattle, to Olympic National Park. And it honestly was just a really great summer that we made some amazing memories. Although it was hard and a lot of work with your test and everything we had, it was a time that we really enjoyed.
We did a lot of fun travels when we could on the weekends. We went to like a professional baseball game there in Seattle and soccer game.
You went to the Sounders? Yeah.
We had friends and family come to visit as well. So I feel like this was kind of our first time hosting family too, which we had no idea that we would spend a lot more time in our future doing that. Traveling with family to me is like one of my favorite things to do because you're able to just see more of the world and experience it with those that you grew up with. And it can kind of like change all of your perspectives together at the same time. And so it's really fun to like share a piece of what our summer was like with our family. So I think that's where we should end off here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm feeling like this is a good place to leave off. And next episode, we'll be diving into what we talked about before, our trip with our nonprofit and really the kickstart of our travels.
And to do a little bit of like foreshadowing, we started in India, and then let's just very briefly list out the country so you can kind of get an idea of what to expect.
We started out in India, we went to Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam.
In a different order. Than that.
Australia, New Zealand, and then we ended out on our anniversary in Tahiti.
Which was honestly just a long layover.
Coincidence.
For the flight that was going home from New Zealand. But it was an amazing time. Obviously, that's a lot of countries, but we're going to be sharing the highlights. And I think we'll give some travel tips for those countries too, because they're all very different, and share more about what that experience did for us.
Yeah. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We appreciate your guys' support. If you're joining us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave any comments there. Rate us if you'd like. We love any feedback that you guys have for future episodes. Feel free to also DM us on Instagram or anywhere else for any future comments or topics that we already talked about today that you want us to clarify or dive into.
Your support means so much to us, especially those that are listening here on YouTube as well. You guys have been with us for the long haul. We're so happy to have you here listening. We know these videos are a little different than the typical ones that we post, but as you know, next week we're going to be posting a YouTube regular kind of like travel videos that we have always done, and then we'll have the podcast. So we schedule it as every other one, and we're just happy for anyone who wants to listen. We hope our story reminds you that your story matters too.